6 minutes.
In relation to the banks, which have caused so much damage to our economy and society, Fine Gael and the Labour Party in particular have talked the talk but have miserably failed to walk the walk. Speaking only last month, the Taoiseach, Mr Kennedy, described the refusal by some banks to cut interest rates as a very serious matter. He said it would not be tolerated. He said, and I quote, "We are not happy, nor is it acceptable that you should have a position that banks are charging mortgages and mortgage holders a much higher rate than they are able to borrow right now." Taoiseach, the Taoiseach, we are not happy. That's his contribution to this. Increasingly, he acts as if he is a spectator or a commentator on major political issues of the day. But he is the Taoiseach. He's supposed to be in charge. Recent research from the central bank shows that homeowners in this state are paying well over the odds for standard variable rates compared to other EU states. The average rate on outstanding standard variable rates here is 4.24%, compared to the EU medium mortgage rate of 2.8%. The interest rates for new mortgages here is 4.26%. It's the highest of all the states that were analysed. The Eurozone average rate is 2.1. Here it is 3.42. And the present situation where some mortgage holders are being ripped off while the person next door on tracker mortgages are paying the market rate is unacceptable and unsustainable. That's not a normal banking environment. The banks have created a situation and the government has tolerated it. For all its words of protestation, the government allows this to happen. It's bad for householders, it's bad for families, it's bad for the economy, and there's no more pathetic sight than watching government ministers whinge and whine about the failures of the banks to act fairly and then do nothing about it. Ministers, government TDs bleat about the great sacrifices of the Irish people. You praise and laud and applaud the great sacrifices that the people have borne. At the same time, you cut child benefit, you cut other social protections for the most vulnerable of our citizens. And you've taken on the power to do this. You weren't mandated to do it, you've taken on that power. You also have the power to instruct the banks to act fairly. And that is what you are mandated to do. And that is the type of positive action that people wanted when they elected you in 2011. They wanted a government to act in their interest, not that of the banks. That's what they get rid of the other crowd for, because they were perceived as having created and tolerated the entire mess. But the government's approach of verbalised or going cap in hand to the banks in relation to mortgage rates has got absolutely no more. This bill is a very reasonable and measured response to the scandal of very high standard variable rates, mortgage interest rates in this state, which are causing so much distress. And I want to commend Teachta Pearse Doherty for bringing it forward. For the first time under this legislation, the central bank will be able to set a cap after considering the likely economic and social effects. This is an exceptional bill for exceptional times. It's not a permanent plan. Competition, other reforms are still needed in the banking sector. And we have sought to limit this proposal at this stage to those banks which the citizens have bailed out. In other words, the banks that we're supposed to own, the bank that the punters are supposed to own, the bank that the people out there are supposed to have ownership of. But it's very clear that the present situation, which could be at least rectified to some degree by this bill, is going to be tolerated by the government. Now, the Minister of Finance said that the type of measures Sinn Féin proposals in this bill will be considered in the budget if they are still needed. Minister, if it's good enough to be in the budget, it's good enough to do now. So that's what mortgage holders want. Banks do have a moral obligation, but banks are not run on the basis of morality any more than most politics. But they have to be encouraged and legislated into giving something back to a society and an economy which they have done so much damage to. And they need to be forced to end the rip-off of hard-pressed mortgage holders. And that's what this bill will do, and I urge all TDs to support it.
Thank you, Deputy.